You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. Welcome to We Are Libertarians, the Chris Spangle Show. Who knows what we're calling it? Look, I'm not even sure what day it is. What day is of the week is it?
It's a day.
Right, it's some day in between Christmas and New Year's.
Sunday.
Yeah.
And we all had time off, so we figured we'd get together. And you did yoga today, didn't you?
Yeah, it did early in the morning. Yeah, which I almost like when I got up this morning to go to yoga class, my wife was freaking out because she thought it was Sunday. She's like, I'm late for work. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's look, I apologize. I've had 5 life changes in the last month. I've had a very crazy month. Trump won, and life started moving fast.
It's all great now. It's all better.
I know.
Mixed.
Rhinehold,
Yeah.
This is the first time Rhinehold left his cry closet since Trump got elected, right? You doing okay, buddy?
I'm doing fine.
What?
It doesn't affect me any.
Pull that closer for me. Yeah, so I have a new baby on the way,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a new job.
Yes.
So I'm leaving Bob and Tom, which I've worked there for. So I've done this show for 13 years, almost 14 in March. We Are Libertarians will be 14 years old. And for 11 of those, I've worked at the Bob and Tom show. And so I tendered my resignation. I'm going to work at a news outlet. So I'm going to be fake news like Dennis Rhinehold. And
Already spreading propaganda.
yes. So I'll be the director of digital content at the Indiana Business Journal, which if anybody listens to this show, they can't believe I'm going to work in journalism. That's for sure. But I'll be managing podcasting, social media, all that kind of stuff. So I wasn't sure if I would get to do this show.
Yeah.
So I got an early look at the employee handbook.
Okay. Thanks.
So it's like, okay, do I get to keep doing my show? Because I don't know if that qualifies me to be a journalist, or what am I allowed to say?
Yeah.
There's got to be some different ethical standards than the Bob and Tom show,
Exactly. Yeah.
where there are none.
They'll get canceled. Everything else is fine.
What you say on, you can't say certain words on the radio.
Yeah, but I get to say most of them over at the Pat Down, and so I can't. Not all of them, some of them. It's just a weird thing. Like, I really loved working at the Bob and Tom show, and I grew up there. Like, I started there married, got divorced 2 months into it, then went through my whole single phase, and ended up getting remarried and having kids, and two now, one on the way, and it's been great. When your job's kind of on autopilot, like, we built so much new stuff, like podcasts, video streams, all kinds of stuff, and I'm like aging out a little bit in certain areas, like video editing. Like, I can't do TikToks the same way that some of these young kids can. So I think it's good for them because they can hire somebody who's in their 20s that understands the TikToks better.
Yeah.
But it's a great opportunity for me to go and work for the IBJ, which is like a fast-growing newspaper, highly respected here. I don't know if it's the state's largest newspaper, but it's got to be close to it at this point compared to the Indy Star. Like,
Well, the Indy Star's not state-owned, so that's...
and that's what I love about the IBJ. Like the Bob and Tom show, like when you work in radio, it's sad. But if you work for Tom Griswold, it's awesome because you work for a local guy who you can directly talk to. It's not some conglomerate, right? And the IBJ is owned by a local guy named Nate Feltman. And so, unlike Gannett, which owns a ton of newspapers and will just cut you if you make too much money and have too much value to the organization, you're gone. So it's like a cool opportunity to go and do some different things and see how the sausage is made. But I will say, just please give me some grace on the output of the show. The show's not going anywhere. I get to continue doing this as long as I tell you the following. The opinions expressed by Chris Spangle, all of his guests, and these two idiots are not those of his employer. That is all I have to say to continue doing this show. But I have to figure out this new job. I'm transitioning out of the old job. I've got all kinds of stuff going on. So give me a couple months. Maybe a little sporadic, 3-4 months. No. We will continue to get together and do this show. But if it's like, where the heck are my episodes? That's where. It's just, my son had a seizure. So he had a febrile seizure. I was in the middle of doing a podcast episode with the Pat Down. And then took it and then the next day went to my job interview, and then we had 15 million Christmas events, so we've just been busy. But yeah, so really exciting time in my life, and very excited that I get to keep doing the show with you two.
we're really happy. I was worried there for a minute. I was
Why?
going to keep the show, and I was practicing like
You were ready for the takeover.
I was ready. I was like, "Hey, welcome to the Chris Spangle Show. I'm your host, Harry Press. I'm practicing in the camera. This is going to be great. It's going to be awesome."
I started talking to them in mid to late November,
Mhm.
and I didn't get a look at the handbook till a week ago,
Mm.
till a little before Christmas, and I was like, man, I just don't know what am I going to be able to do or say.
Part of the thing too is that they hired you knowing.
Yeah, like you go,
They would have said, okay, you're gonna have to stop doing.
and it's not like this show is the way that this show used to be, Harry.
That's true. We've cleaned up in the last 4 years.
Since 2018.
Since bringing Rhinehold on to help clean things up, and hiring Jason's HR director has helped out a lot.
James has been a fantastic HR director. Once we made him HR director, he was no longer allowed on the show, and it was fine.
They can have HR on the show.
I don't know. I think part of one of the reasons I'm excited about this new job is, and we had no idea what we're talking about today. We're like, we've got to do an episode. Let's get together and chat.
Mhm.
We may get to something, but I would say that like where I'm at politically is a lot different than where I was 5-6 years ago. And I've talked about this a little bit, like doing, Leaders and Legends with Robert Vane, this former deputy mayor of Indianapolis.
Mhm.
I was the executive director of the Libertarian Party of Indiana from 2008 to 2012. And I came up on talk radio. I wanted to do talk radio. And that experience of going and sitting across from people, recording these episodes, like running the sound as Robert interviews the people who built all the projects that I railed against forever, and hearing their rationale, it gave me a different perspective on how a city runs. And I would say that I am still libertarian for sure, but I see things like our publicly funded stadium. I don't have as much hatred for it. I still wouldn't have done it the same way, but I look at it and go, okay, the 81,000 jobs that came up from that are undeniable.
Mhm.
And so you have to reconcile, and that's my problem with a lot of the libertarian movement and talk radio now and right-wing populist talk, is it's very ungrounded from what I see and experience in my work,
Mhm.
my day-to-day work, from consulting, from helping people start podcasts, from another podcast I do called Big Hearted Indie, which you should check out. Like, being around people who make decisions, you learn a couple things. First, they have no idea what libertarians believe. They're interested if they met a normal libertarian, but libertarians don't get off of Twitter to actually go meet them and try to talk to them and influence them. And secondly, the way that decisions are made are totally different from how they're portrayed on social media. And so I think it's hard to do a show like this where you used to be like a populist type libertarian, and I'm just going to say what you want to hear. It feels like you're lying to people if you have an experience like I've had over the last few years of talking to Brian Payne, who created the Cultural Trail in Indianapolis, which got, I think, like $10 million in funding. And when I was at the LPIN, we put out a press release against it. You're just like, this is just, I forget what I called it, but, some form of welfare, and maybe it is, but like the Cultural Trail has led to this blossoming downtown that achieved a lot of his goals in terms of bringing people into downtown, building a tax base in an area of our state where downtown Indianapolis, Center Township, provides like 50% of funding for the rest of the state. Like, it's Indianapolis and Marion County, and then cornfields with little dots of Fort Wayne, Evansville, South Bend. And we're like a donor county. So I don't know. I've had a different perspective, and I'm interested to go into this job and lean into that, which kind of makes this job a little bit harder to come here and go, everything's socialism, and I don't know.
Well, yeah,
Because I don't know how to talk about this stuff anymore, Harry, because I'm like learning all kinds of different things, and it's a different way of thinking about government than it's like I've turned into Abdul. Like, I'm a small government, okay with the establishment type of guy now, at least on the local level. Like, I have concerns about the world's richest man controlling the presidential administration. That's it. But on the local level, like, all you have to do is show up and get involved. That's all it takes to become involved and part of the quote-unquote establishment of your
Like
state.
they said about libertarianism. If you showed up, you got a job.
Right.
yeah. I think it's just more of a just growing up and maturing and taking more time to not do the knee-jerk libertarian response. It's what I always say. Once you take a time to actually think about it, you come up with you understand where Rhinehold comes out from most of the time. And I think myself have also, because yeah, I've railed against the city on some of the different projects too, but taking a step back and thinking about everything out of it is like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have funded it the same way. I would have packaged it differently, but yes, I see the benefits of these different things like that. That's why, because I get upset. People get upset with me all the time because I like bikes. I like public transportation, but I want it set up correctly and paid for and not be like net losses. The stadiums were great things. They brought jobs to the city. The basketball stadium, whatever it's calling itself for this season, was designed to run in the red and was draining a lot of the different resources. Like, it did bring jobs in, but like it was ridiculously underfunded, funded incorrectly. Yeah.
Yeah, like public transportation for me is like my wife has started this group attached to something called Embrace Grace. And basically it's crisis pregnancy centers talk to women who are unwed single mothers who are in financial hardship, possibly considering abortion, and they're just looking for community. Because what you learn really quick when you do what my wife has been working on is that women who are considering abortion usually are considering that because they have no other social structure around them, which is why 60% of abortions are performed by Christian women. If you read the book that we talked to the author, Alexander DeSanctis, Tearing Us Apart, that's a fact from that book. And so what she does is it's like a 12-week class, community group, and then at the end they throw them a baby shower. And our church, basically, one of the women walked in and saw this pile of presents and started crying. She's like, I can't believe you guys got all this for us. And she's like, that's your pile. There's 4 others or 3 others. And it's the first time these women have other kids, but it's the first time they've had like new bottles, a crib, like just the basics. And they're living in parts of the city. The reason that they're in dire circumstances is they're in parts of the city without public transportation, and it's impossible to get to public transportation. And it's impossible to get a living situation that is reasonable around public transportation. And so without public transportation, it keeps women like this in poverty. And so I live around the red line, and locally, like the red line out where Rhinehold lives and where you live and where I used to the red line, it legitimately destroyed Broad Ripple, so all those people in Irvington.
It was done, yeah.
Yeah, how it was done, but like where I live on Meridian, like it doesn't inconvenience me ever at all. Instead of turning left today, I turned right and went around a block, and I didn't even think about it, but that red line is so vital for so many people living in different parts of the city, and I'm okay with. I'm not as mad about it as I used to be. Like I used to, when I didn't live around the red line and I didn't have an awareness of how that public transportation affects local people, like I'm okay with my living in the city and paying those tax dollars for that.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's taken some of the sting out in terms of the white hot. I guess my priorities have shifted in terms of what makes me mad. Instead of personal inconveniences, now it's let's focus on like actual evil, like war and some of these other things.
What's the thing that I always try to bring up to a lot of libertarians when they're talking about let's end this, let's end this, and stop this. It's okay. Those things, I don't agree with the way they're being done. I don't agree with them being laws. I don't know the government being involved in it, but they're solving an actual problem that exists or attempting to solve a problem that exists. They may not be doing it very well. They may be actually exacerbating the problem, but they're trying to solve a problem that exists. And if you just stop it, you're not solving the problem either. You're just making things worse. And when you do that, if you are actually looking for the government to back out of certain things and try to find solutions that are better suited for solving that problem, is if you just cut and leave it to fester or be a problem, then people are going to clamor for a solution and the government's going to come right back in and make it even bigger.
I look at like, of all the Trump world, I'm Team Musk and Vivek so far. Sorry, Harry. If you're going to give me the choice of Elon Musk, who wants to cut a bunch of ineffective government programs and wants to support work visas, versus Steve Bannon, I'm going to be on Team Musk. But
Sorry, it's your choice.
Those are my choices.
That's the problem.
If you're looking at, all right, the current administration, which team are you going to choose? Then, yeah, I'm going to go. I look at Doge and I go, there are 100 to 10,000 government programs that are funding things that are totally useless. They're useful for fraud and should go.
A lot of things what you're going to see is they're going to start cutting things that we would think are useless. Like they're already starting, we're going to get rid of the corn subsidies. We're going to start doing things, but they're going to affect farmers. Farmers are not going to be happy about that. There's people who are going to get upset about a lot of stuff. One of the things they're going after really quick is they're looking at cutting VA benefits. That's not going to go over well.
No.
Especially with the base, once they figure it out, once the Trump base figures out they're going after veterans.
Yep.
I think that's where the question for me lies. Like, how can you choose your priorities to be as humane as possible and give people time to prepare? But if you're looking at all this and you're going, all right, you don't have an option with something like Social Security is going to run out of funding.
Correct, yeah.
And you're going to have to reform it, if not end it. Or it's going to do it itself. Like in the 2030s, we've done episodes on this. Like you're going to get to a mandatory haircut of a third of everyone's benefits unless there's a funding fix in Social Security to actually fix it. And so how do you fix it? Do you fix it by ending it completely? Or do you fix it by reforming it in some way? Or do you do, which is what most of Washington seems to want to do, which is nothing. And then when the crisis comes, what Rhinehold's saying is we're not going to get better governance. We're going to get a worse solution because of the way that
solution.
You're going to get an emergency solution.
The emergency print more money to pump into it.
You can't tell people. So a lot of the problems we've had as far as Social Security and all that stuff goes, the debt, is that we've had for so long, in order to maintain power in politics, you've had to make things appear great, which means you can't have any down. Like we had a kind of a spike in inflation and a little bit of price here and there, but things are still actually pretty good, and we're still growing with GDPs and stuff like that. It's not a big turn down. It's not a big, but to everybody experiencing it, it's, oh my God, the sky's falling. It's the most horrible thing ever. And of course, after the minute the election is over, then all of a sudden that perception is now 180 degrees the other way. Oh, everything's great. But that's the problem, is you can't have any perceptions in that. So everybody is like kicking the can down the road on everything they're doing. So they're just borrowing more money for their lives to be great and then saying, oh, my grandkids will take care of it. Yeah. Now the grandkids are sitting looking at that wall of debt, that facing it. Like I've spent my whole life being forced into paying the Social Security. I'm getting ready to retire about the time it's going to go belly up.
Yep.
What happens to all that money I spent my whole life spending that I could have been putting into my own 401k and preparing for my own retirement that I could never had access to? Now it's just gone.
Yes.
I'm the one that's screwed. So what do those people do? They're not going to stand for that. And Gen X is the people who basically voted in Trump. If you look at the percentages, that was the one age group that actually had a positive for Trump, and everybody else was negative on him, like on the voting. So technically, they're the ones that voted him in, and they're the ones that are going to get hit the hardest by that sort of thing. So they're not going to stand for it. They're going to demand a solution because they're not going to want to retire without Social Security benefits. So what do? Oh, now we're going to have a bigger problem. And they can't fix it and get people out of the country and cut immigration, because those are the only people who are bringing in the money now, because we have a negative birth rate. Yep. We're declining, and we had the baby boomers are all retiring. And
you remember when DACA, they wanted to deport DACA students.
Yeah.
And it was like $20 billion in revenue generated by these 200,000 kids.
That's the first thing they're going after. They're going after birthright citizenship. They're going to get all of them out of there. That's what they're promising to do. Whether it happens or not, we'll see. But that's what they're promising to do. And you can't have both things. You can't do all of that and not just deficit spend. And that's the other thing, is Trump says he wants to be able to deficit spend the whole time to make that happen, and it'll fix itself on the back end.
I guess that
never happens.
This is where I'm at. I'm being candid in saying that, like, I don't have any answers anymore. Like, I guess, like, I have these, it's so deeply ingrained in me, Harry, to say less government, smaller government. And there's so many things on the table for me right now to I know the free market works.
Correct.
I know that the less money you take from me to throw it away in federal programs, the more money I have, just like he said. But I don't see anybody with any kind of plan right now. And I don't have the time to figure the plan out like I used to when I didn't have little kids. And I'm just looking for somebody to come forward with a plan. And to me, you want to make groceries cheaper by kicking everybody out. That to me is not the plan. Meanwhile, the other side is let's spend as much money as possible. I'm like, you don't have a plan. I just feel like in terms of my libertarianism and my libertarian journey, I just feel a little, I wouldn't say disillusioned. Maybe that's the answer, just like a little lost.
Yeah.
It's not
at this point.
It's not that you're lost. You just realize, like, one, you do not. It's hard to find the time to do this thought process.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to go, you know what? I'll just spin up another government program. Let's just spin the sucker up or shoot something down. Those are easy thoughts and to like grandize and get people and throw the red meat out to people. But the idea, like the plan to do something, that takes some actual thought. You know how we're going to do this. And yes, dismantling the government is a hard job that the libertarian will have to come up with. These are the hard talk that no one really wants to do. It's like, okay, that's fine. We want to get rid of this program, but how to actually do that?
Yeah, and that's to me like where the Musk Vivek, and this is why I get why libertarians are attracted to Trump, because you're just going to cry about it. Like, you got to get rid of these programs. We can't afford it. We got to shrink the size of government. We've got to reduce war. We're just going to do it, and then we'll figure it out on the other side. But you need to meet the iron fist of free markets.
Yeah,
and we're just going to do it.
If we had an actual free market, it would be a different thing. But
Right.
we don't. And they're coming in and they're talking free market.
Well, hold on. Let Harry finish.
Don't we have a government agency that already looks at everything's budgets and finds things like this? Don't we already have that? I thought we already have an agency.
Yeah, that's what
Congress.
you're still they talk, because if you were talking like the government accounting and
A government accountability office.
they can't be the same thing, because then you would be having two things trying to find efficiency things. And you just no way.
That's inefficient.
Yeah, you would know you'd have two people running two different organizations.
No, but I think but you're downplaying it.
It's not like they're
Rhinehold, but
resources from that.
to my point, people on the right, like myself, who have lived through George Bush and lived through the Mitt Romney years, and you're like, look, you can only mealy mouth the malice quote of conservative is somebody who fights for the progressive ideas of 50 years ago. I'm mangling the quote, but it's why Trump has become such a force on the right, is because he's saying, look, I don't care about what's appropriate. I don't care about old Washington. I don't care about how things used to be run. I want results. Yeah. And to me, the problem with Trump is that he has no philosophical underpinnings that are fundamentally libertarian. But I think that idea of enough of your crap, start cutting, is what makes him attractive to me and a lot of other libertarians. Not that I support Trump, but I'm saying, like, are we going to actually make some change? Because if you're going to make change, you're going to have to do a lot of things that are very unpopular with a lot of people. And you're going to eat a lot of crap. And you may lose an election or two, but it's got to be done. And now tariffs and deportations, these are not the right way to get economic growth going in the correct direction. But that's where his lack of fundamental understanding of any kind of philosophy comes in. But I am attracted to the Doge Commission, where it just comes in, all right, fuera. Like, you look at what's going on in Argentina and the turnaround that's happening there, it's because the guy came in, said, I don't care, and just started cutting everything, and it's working. Of course you don't think it's working right now.
I'm not saying, I'm saying there's negative benefits. There's negative aspects to what's going on in Argentina, and nobody wants to talk about because they want to say, oh, he's doing a great job. Yeah. The problem, so he got to where rentals are down now. You actually afford rental properties. Right. But the downside of that is that you can't buy anything anymore because everybody's holding on to theirs because they're making the money on the rental process. Right. So you want to try to buy a house, good luck. You're not going to be able to buy anything down there. You're going to be a renter society for the next 20 years until that clears itself out. There's going to be negative aspects.
Trade-offs. You're saying trade-offs.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how many times I've been in business, in companies that I've worked for or worked with, worked around as a consultant, where this comes all the time. New guy comes in, the CEO, let's cut this stuff. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to reform everything. Totally screws up the business. And they spend the next 15, 20 years recovering from the damage that's done by just coming in through with a red line and just cut. And not examining why the business is running this way. What's a better way to do it? That's the thing. That's what Musk did at Twitter when he came in. He started just cutting things, and he had all kinds of issues and negative problems with it. And there's still issues.
Well, I'd say, like, on the whole, Twitter works as well as it ever did.
Twitter's a mess right now. I don't know why you think it works better.
I use it every day. It seems to be working for me. What's it not working for you?
It's just a mess. Nobody goes to Twitter to do the things that Twitter was meant to be for.
Which is what?
To actually have communications with your friends and so
I like Twitter was ever really meant to be like a friend communication tool. It was always more like gather information from the hive mind, right? Like, I follow a lot of journalists and a lot of news outlets. So I see that's where I like get a lot of information. And yeah, I have seen like on the For You page a lot more nonsense creep in the last 6 months.
Booties.
But I don't have many booties. I don't know what's going on over there, but
it's just if I go to if I dare to go to the For You page, it is just nothing but right-wing populist.
See, I have way more right-wing content on Instagram than I have on. I have way more booties and right-wing content on Instagram than I do Twitter.
I've curated my Instagram, so it's like a little bit of libertarianism, but the majority of it right now is just all yoga stuff, and so calming. It's so great.
Instagram is very easy to tweak the algorithm, and now you can reset your algorithm.
Yeah, I can reset it. Yeah,
but no, got even better at that though. You're tweaking your algorithm on Blue Sky. So
then we'll do different threads.
Blue Sky is a hot mess of wokeism. That's why you love it. Go ahead, Harry.
The one thing what I don't like about X is that on certain threads is that the F models just start posting their links underneath it, which is annoying when you're like, I'm reading at work. I'm trying to look up, so like, oh, this is a down event that's happening. I can read this. I'm like, oh, booty. Another booty.
Well, and the number of bots on it. The funniest thing is that Musk was so against bots. It was
like, I literally just started up. Okay, David Axelrod, Fakertarians, some like MAGA person, Liberty memes, another libertarian that's like old school.
Want to go in the comments?
Like Oh yeah, the comments have always been trash.
No.
Yes, they have. Like, go on Dave Smith's podcast.
I don't go to that.
Go on Dave Smith's. Yeah, let me tell you what they were like in 2021 or 22.
I am talking.
What's funny is that after the election,
I do get a lot of Richard Hania.
Yeah. But after the election, there was
Alex Norschwath from Cato.
Yeah.
One of your buddies.
A bunch of everybody started losing like 20% or 30% of their followers, just like that after the election, because all the bots stopped. That's how much bot traffic was on there.
But that's how it always was.
Yeah, it's always been.
It's that's why like Hillary Clinton was saying.
The other thing with X, when you did cut a lot of people, you cut a lot of the fact that a lot of organizations did, and especially it being in California, they also hired a lot of different people to do different things for marketing and others, and they cut a lot of that, but they kept a lot of the core engineers. And some of them engineers, a lot of the code that runs Twitter, like there's not much improvement there. Like it just runs. You just need your maintenance squad.
They just got Grok 2 though.
Yeah, but that's just yeah. All I'm saying is what they cut was mostly the fat around it. Like every organization has that, especially large ones like X did.
All right, let's try to get back to some point. Go ahead, Harry. Try to take us back to some relevant point. What are we talking?
I want to rant, but like the long-term thinking that Rhinehold talks about, because governments should last forever, and that's how you should plan things out. You don't need a 4-year plan; you need a 100-year plan. You need to work towards something like that. But businesses need to also have that one too. That's why you see a lot of businesses right now understanding the raw deal they're having with cloud providers. Like maybe we shouldn't put everything up here. Maybe every workload shouldn't be up here. And we were watching them now even to come out. I've been watching a lot of businesses come out of the cloud, moving a lot of their workloads out.
Yeah, I guess having lived 41 and a half years now, like it seems like we always run. Maybe it's always been this way, but it seems, especially in the internet age, we run to the next big thing and then we moderate and go, maybe it wasn't all it's cracked up to be, and there's some good things here. It's what we've said on the show for the last 5 years. In a time of extremes, the center will eventually moderate things. If you look at Trump now, he seems to have I'm not going to try to say that he's moderated, but I feel like if you look at things 3 years ago, you would have said the right wing is dead. Everything is just a big giant takeover of the left wing. That was like the vibe that you got on social media, that it's all over for the right. You're all going to be put in concentration camps. It's starting with violating your free speech. And a lot of that stuff that really started germinating in 2016, 2017 on college campuses blossomed in society, and society looked at it and said, all right, look, I want representation, I want respectfulness, I want there to be open opportunities for everybody, but I'm not willing to go this far with it.
Yeah.
And that's like when you look at this election, elections are the only true poll that you actually get. When you look at the results of this election, it's made everybody think, all right, maybe this like lurch to the left is now veering a little too far right. Like in businesses, we all went online, everybody needs an app. Then you realize these standalone mobile apps don't work. Let's just like work within these frameworks. Let's moderate. Like in your business, I'm sure there's in podcasting, for instance, it's always going to be interesting people like us talking behind a microphone. Like how many different times over 13 years have I tried to innovate and try this, try that? Like just set up a camera, talk with your friends. Don't get fancy with it. Just do the one core competency. It always lurches back. And I think people freak out too much about this extreme, that extreme, and they take for granted the fact that everything eventually moderates.
Yeah.
Like we think about the trade-offs. Like I want some government, but I want government to do these things. I don't want government doing all of this other stuff. I don't want too many regulations, but we need some regulations over here. Like I think that's where the average person ends up. And the same with like businesses.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't really regulate the things that will help everyone on their day-to-day, like your privacy in the United States. Like it's what we have, there's a law in the books that stopped Blockbuster from selling your rental habits, which Blockbuster would be a powerhouse to this day walking around if they could have sold your rental, what is it?
Yeah, like you check out Back to the Future 14
times. If they could have sold that, but they stopped that in the 80s. And the simple fact that we can't do this now to like the tech that we have, why do you think all these apps, if you want to know the real reason all these freaking apps, all these different businesses always will put apps on your phone, is because from there they can take information. They can't do it from a browser.
Yeah, Walmart just bought Vizio TVs, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so Vizio TVs just got purchased by Walmart. Vizio TVs makes more money from selling the data of people who log in on their smart TVs than they do from selling televisions. And so they bought Vizio for the data. That they have.
Just the data. That's why some people, so if you don't want your smart TV to spy on you, because you can't buy one, you basically can't get it online. You can't let this thing get online.
And that's what Google did, was come out and said that we're gonna stop allowing third-party cookies.
Yeah.
Now everybody's freaking out on the advertising spaces because like we can't get the advertising information. So now everybody's gonna be, you have to log into our site in order to, and it's free, but you just have to have a login, and that way they can.
So we went back to angel sites.
Yeah.
GeoCities. Yeah. No, like in podcasting, it feels like the era of the big tech giant like Facebook is over in some ways. Like people have rejected that. It's now big corporations. Like you can't see how big these corporations are, but like in the podcasting space, for instance, they tried to centralize everything. They being like radio companies, Spotify, and because it's all open source, Adam Curry should be given a lot of credit, not only for popularizing Dave Weiner, but Adam Curry for popularizing podcasts, but then saving it from being centralized with Podcast 2.0. And so now podcasting is never going to hopefully have what happened to radio, which is like this mass centralization, hedge funds take over, cut your way to prosperity. Oops, we killed an entire industry.
And how much of radio centralization was partially because of government involvement and the FCC licensing and all this.
Right. It was a trade-off. We need to protect the airwaves, and then we need to open that up, and then we wrote the law to open it up to allow for something that libertarians would go, yeah, that was a great law, but then the trade-off 30 years later, for almost 30 years later, it was 1996, the industry, it just got killed by hedge funds. There's no other way to put it. And you can say, yes, they didn't adapt as an industry. They tried with like mobile apps, like the iHeartRadio app and podcasting, and there's been revenue that has come from those things. But when ultimately your industry is controlled by hedge funds, and like Bain Capitals and Black Rocks and Blackwater, whatever, all these different, they literally just go in and they go, oh, we're going to squeeze this to death.
And now those same people who are running those hedge funds and the organizations are now running the federal government.
They have been. Don't act like, but Donald Trump came in and all of a sudden those people got carte blanche.
Oh yeah, that's new. That's new. That just happened.
That just happened.
That just happened. Right.
That just happened now. All of a sudden, that's what I love about Donald Trump being president is that you get to see how it all actually works, because people come in and go, I can't believe this is happening. And then you can go, all right, yeah, this is happening to a 50% more of a degree, but this has always been happening in these different aspects and these different ways. And people can go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There just doesn't seem to be a solution.
I do love that most regulations are like that, right? They're to protect the people who already have this stuff and to keep from competition.
The way that, like, because like when Trump does something or talks about something, people investigate. They pay attention. Most of the time, like even with Biden, a lot of them went to sleep. They stopped caring. A lot of people didn't recognize his other moves that he was doing until it blew up. Or something.
I feel like it's different this time. I feel like Rhinehold's not even wearing this pussy hat. The resistance has just collapsed. Like you're a little more in tune with the left than I am, but it just seems like there's no marches in Washington. There's no resistance.
It's eating itself, right?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're fighting.
Oh, yeah. They're trying to determine why they lost to such a horrible candidate, and they've decided that the problem is they need to embrace populism too.
Okay, great.
Two populists. We're in, I think, the third populist movement of the United States. There's been there was the first populist movement with Jackson, and then the 20s was a big popular movement up into the first.
You had the right wing movement of the Klan, and then you also had the left wing movement of Woodrow Wilson and Eugene Debs.
So that was all populism. That's like the second phase, and now we're going into the third phase of it, where populism gets tried. Populism fails because there's all kinds of issues with it, because it doesn't respect individual liberties. It tries to do mass think. You fall victim to I can't say the word right now for some reason.
Demographic?
Demagoguery. I don't know why I couldn't say that word. For some reason, my mind just had a Biden one. So that's going to happen now. It's all going to fall apart again, and we're going to recover and come back. It's just like what happened with the Libertarian Party, where it's like, we've tried this right-wing populism coming in and taking over, like the Mises Caucus. That's happened 2 times before, and it fails, and then we go back to doing the right way, and then somebody comes in and takes over again. It's ebb and flow, a cyclic thing that happens, and we're just
Well, the problem, like, at least for the right-wing populism, other than mass deportations, I don't really know what they want. It seems to be a lot of immigration. The left-wing populism seems to want, the social healthcare, like socialized medicine. Right, and that's not going to work. $33 trillion. The American people, by and large, are not going to vote that in.
Yeah, and it's not going to work how they want it to work. They want this unified stuff like that. It's not going to work that way. If they're going to want it to work, so a libertarian trying to help them do universal health care, is you have to go in like how the public school system is ran. It's got to be ran like that. Small little things in little districts.
Little fiefdoms.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, the healthcare system that we have now, judging by the reaction to Luigi, is not working for people either, because they're willing to look the other way at vigilante murder, which I couldn't be more.
Allegedly, we don't know if that was really him. Okay.
Okay, allegedly.
He may or may
So you're right, because there was a statement out of New York. There was someone who confessed to the murder. They said it wasn't Luigi. He said, "It's me, Mario." So we don't know. It's still a developing story.
And he may or may not have had the weapon and other things that match him, but
and lots of alibis, like he was moving furniture at the local.
Hey, I saw a lot of photos of him at different festivals, all kinds of different things. That's all I know. And remember.
No, but I think that's the sad reality of things, is that people are like, a populist environment is where you are marked for death and celebrated if you do die based on how people judge you on the internet. And Gamergate, you've talked about this in past episodes, like Gamergate was such a harbinger for things to come and set the template and built the connections for a lot of the right-wing and left-wing apparatuses in the internet sphere.
A lot of different weapons that were used in Gamergate are still being used today and helped a lot of different things get proven, like the payment and after archiving people's comments and stuff like that. So it's like just showing like your likes are public and tracking people down and understanding that a lot of the journalists that we discuss, they all talk to each other. They go to the same parties. They're in their old Discord or Twitter DMs with each other and they communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And they pivot and they go around us and they feel like, and a lot of the times the journalists feel like they don't need us. We're just supposed to eat their squab. And that's
I need you, Harry. now that I'm a journalist. But
Hey, it's the only paper I ever buy.
yeah, so left-wing populism, Rhinehold, like when they talk about what they want or where they want to take things, like what is our alternative going to be in 4 and 8 years? So if we're going to have right-wing populism, when we understand the face of it, which has always been around immigrants and using the other and the different as a punching bag, and we can have economic prosperity if we just deal with them. We know where the right is at. Where's the left going to go, and what are they going to offer us? Is it an AOC? Is it what's it going to look like?
Maybe Bernie Sanders light, so it's gonna be like more of an AOC type thing, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they're no. It's gonna be split, and it's gonna be split on the just like it is on the right now. So you got the right wing populists have all taken over in the MAGA and all that stuff, but you still have people on the right who are so anti that they're trying to figure their place out.
Yep.
There's still a split there, though. You got the same thing going on the left, where you have the populists who are trying to drag the parties like, we tried this in the middle and tried reaching out to Cheney and having all this stuff on and trying to reach out to the Never Trumpers and the right. And we forgot that we should be going more left. We should be more Bernie Sanders type of thing. And so
I just don't feel like that was the message of this election at all, though.
that's what they're taking out of it.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking about it. Instead of taking the time, like there are some of them, like Jank is not talking about doing that. I know. I can't believe I'm agreeing with saying with Jank Uger and the Young Turks.
No, he's on full populist. He's all MAGA.
But hasn't he always? He's not.
No. He's trying to.
He's trying to find his place in the MAGA world. He's trying to let's say the populists get together, the right and the left wing populists, and let's do something good against the. So instead of left and right, it's becoming
more based. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's trying to work within the system, which I wish the Democrat Party, like the left, would take this time to remove their socialists and their communists out of their freaking party, get rid of them, and show and demonstrate with Kish Matthews always said, what's the difference between a Democrat and a socialist, and show people that what's different, so people can come back.
But I bet there's a hesitation to do that because if you look at Mitt Romney, somebody who is Bain Capital, hedge fund guy, wealthy guy, the face for me for the country club Republican who looks at fusionism and says, you know what, I'm going to carry some messages of libertarianism. I'm going to carry some of the neocon view of foreign policy. I'm going to take these little bits and I'm going to try to meld everybody together. The top 1%, the rich guys, the Adelsons, the Mercers, put them all together and give you a super candidate that's gives you everything you want on the right and still tries to appeal to left. And it, like, doesn't make anybody happy because you're not appealing to anyone. Right. And then you have Donald Trump who comes along and says, I have this very narrow view of who I want to attract, and it works. And so they look at the right. If I were on the left, I would look at the right and go, trying to do anything other than to pick like a narrow populist group, a populist, take something like socialized medicine and just ride that as hard as you can, be single issue on it. Trump has been with immigration, promise everybody everything. Nobody cares that Donald Trump lies to them. Yeah. Donald Trump says, I'm going to give you cheaper groceries. And then after he gets elected goes, I don't know if that's going to work, but I'm going to get rid of the immigrants. Like, you read, what was the interview he just did where that like came out? It was the Time interview, I think. Where, how are you going to make groceries cheaper? And he's like,
that's hard.
That's hard, but I'm going to get rid of all the immigrants for you. And then he just keeps beating that. And that has been the thing that he's singularly focused on along with tariffs. And it doesn't matter what he says about anything else. If I were a Democrat, I'd look at that and go, just find me that guy who just doesn't care about anything, will tell you what you want to hear, but will write socialized medicine. Because that, to me, is why Bernie was popular. Bernie was going to say Medicare for all.
Correct, yeah.
And Medicare for all, Medicare. Oh, yeah, I agree. No wars. Wars are bad. If Bernie Sanders were elected president tomorrow, like Barack Obama was elected president as an anti-war candidate and then did everything George Bush did, like, I would just ride that and beat that to death. Because it's so telltale when the CEO dies at the hand of an assassin and the internet just went... At the meekest, it went, yay. No, if you tried to scold anybody or be a voice of reason that murder was bad, like, people were against you. It was crazy.
Yes, it is. I'm in a lot of weird Facebook groups, and yeah, that was overnight. Just like, yes, the dude's a hero, blah, blah, blah.
It was setting up for copycats. Not only are you a hero, but you're sexualized, and
Did you see the amount of mail that he got in Pennsylvania?
I believe it.
Yeah, they like overloaded the mail system. His I forget the bank account they call him prison. That was filled. Its commissary was it was filled.
Oh yeah, like $48 million probably.
Probably have tons of cash. He's they're overloading the systems for getting the thing. But and it is copycat. You guys seen people like getting punching. See people getting punched in offices and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's gonna make a copycat. Hopefully not, because yes, murder and vigilante murder is bad. That bad.
I feel like we're solving nothing on this episode, Harry. What are we talking about, though?
I think we're more just, since we're at the tail end of the year, discussing what's happening, seeing the beginning of it.
Yeah, I guess
There's
for me, let me ask this. Okay, if you're us, okay, libertarians, we want to see limited government. We want to see a roadmap to limited government. I would say that I'm more of a reform libertarian, the most hated kind.
Yeah.
A person who would like to reduce the size and scope of government, but try to reduce the amount of harm that does to people as you do it.
Yep.
Convince people that this is the way that it ought to be done.
Yep.
I feel like that is very not in vogue. I would like to see less war. I would like to see, I don't have a problem with us forcing Europe to pay more and asking, what does the UN do? What are you good for? Why are we funding the Ukrainian war? Why are we doing these things? At least asking why we're doing these things. Because so much of what we do in foreign policy can't be questioned, and that seems insane to me. I'm a more conservative person. I live out my Christianity in a pretty conservative way. I don't think that I should tell you how to live. I think it's best for people to live the way that I think they ought to live, but I'm not going to put a gun to your head. That seems pretty out of vogue. If two gay people want to be married and adopt kids, then I don't know why there's a problem with that. But I had a conversation over Thanksgiving where this is the problem with the vigilante thing. I was talking to a former libertarian who is a libertarian in their mind, but I'm not a libertarian anymore because I'm not a monarchist, and they're way down that road. And the view of gay marriage and trans people was that it is against the common good, that it actively harms society, and that we should remove all of their rights to save that harm. And I'm sitting here thinking, after the CEO gets whacked, going, okay, leftist friends who are cheering this, that person thinks that killing gay people is just as good for the common good as killing the healthcare CEO. Do we really want to all go down this road, like where we all just decide arbitrarily with our own guns who gets to live and die? Because that's barbarism. That's not actually a society we want to live in, right? If you were against the CEO being killed, you should also be against the young black man on a construction site being killed in Georgia by two hillbillies.
Correct. Yeah.
Like vigilantism is wrong.
Yep.
I don't know. Is there a place or a path for libertarians who think like libertarians in 2010? Reduce the size and scope of government, reduce public entitlements, protect socially liberal causes.
One thing would always hit me, which especially Rhinehold's probably heard this probably 10, 15 million times, because every young libertarian goes different, is that libertarianism is not anarchism. It's not anarchism. I can have anarchist thought, I can have an anarchist belief, and I can have anarchy as a goal, but libertarianism is not anarchy.
Okay.
There is a proper spot for government to do things. And I think a lot of libertarians don't believe that. They don't want that.
Well, those people that didn't believe that when we were doing this show 10 years ago now don't believe that at all. They believe in a very conservative Orban-style government, which is the fascinating thing to me.
Correct, yeah.
That those libertarians who are anarchists, who couldn't be reasoned with about what role the government ought to play in our lives, and they said none at all, shut it all down, collapse it, those people aren't libertarians anymore. They're now monarchists.
Yeah, MAGA,
they're MAGA. They're voting for Trump.
Yeah.
Because they want a much more restrictive government than...
Well, that was always their goal of what they wanted anarchism for. If we have anarchy, then I can control this little area of I live in, and that's fine.
Yeah. Anarchy that I control, that I'm in charge of, yeah. Which is, it's sad. But like, I always found that very hard to also to go with too. So yes, there is a proper role for government, especially the federal government, and the way you go for local government. I think even being involved in your local government, you've realized, okay, I needed to do this, I needed to do that. These is a small thing, but when it goes outside those areas, that's when it freaking sucks. It's not that, how can I put it? There is a path, but it's going to take a lot of work that a lot of them don't want to do. They like that easy path.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy. It's easy.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to persuade people, and I think a lot of the people that I talk to, like this person that I was talking to, he's very much like a lot of other libertarians I talk to online, and I've seen over the last since COVID that slide towards, it's not conservatism. Like conservatism, properly understood, is like conserving the natural rights tradition. It's okay.
There's a word, there's a dictionary.
But if you say that word, people stop.
No, but it's frustrating because there's no way you can learn anything if you don't look back at history and understand what happens. And we're just repeating the same cycles over and over again.
But I think the frustration that crowd feels, the anarcho-capitalist of 2012, who is now a monarchist in 2025, they feel that persuasion failed. They failed at persuasion, and now there needs to be guns pointed at people's heads to make them realize that they're right. And that's the way that I interpret it.
It's always funny because they would say, we want to win in the marketplace of ideas, and they lost in the marketplace of ideas, and now they're upset.
Yeah, they're upset.
Well, I don't know that they lost because Donald Trump just won with a lot of their themes. How could you say that they lost?
It depends on what they were saying. If they were saying limited government, anarchy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The ANCOMs at the time.
Good idea. Don't require force.
That's what they were saying. The ANCAPs at the time were saying that's what they wanted. Now they've embraced a different thinking. Either they were masking what they really wanted before, now the mask is off, or they decided that what they wanted isn't ever going to happen and they're going to embrace this now. Because
I think it's the second. I don't think that people I don't find most people who identify as libertarian to be BSers. Not a lot of, I do think there's grift and there's definitely it's a lot more now, but I think even then that grift label gets overused. I think people don't choose to be a political outsider for no reason. People who want to go along to get along and will tell you what you want to think. I find way more of those people in the Republican and Democrat parties than I do in the Libertarian Party.
Correct, yeah.
But I do think people who are libertarians or have been libertarians or who, whatever variety you claim, they are people who think deeply about a lot of stuff, do a lot of research and homework. There's just very few people who are glib about it because you're making a choice to be a freak. In a lot of social circles and political social circles, it's not been. I look at the people that I was college Republicans chair with in 2004. One of them runs Augusta golf course, right? Because those guys went to work for the Mitch Daniels administration and got good jobs and climbed up the social ladder because they were participants. And I worked for the Libertarians and I had to fight my way to work up into where I'm at, right? But it's, you don't choose a harder path where you're going to get 3% because you just want to lie about being a libertarian because you want to be different. So
I don't think it's about them lying about it. I think it's that they're outcasted from the others, the other sides.
Yep.
And libertarianism was where they could feel like they could be with another group that kind of allowed them to believe what they wanted to believe.
A lot of libertines are like that, the pot smoking Acapulco people who just want to have threesomes. I find that, yeah.
I'm thinking more of the Sons of the Confederacy people.
Okay, yeah, more militant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
always been the hard
citizen person. Those types of people who just were getting pushed out of the neocon Republican movement.
And what's funny is those people were way in the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian movement broadly until the Tea Party.
Yeah.
And then they got sucked into the Tea Party, right into the MAGA movement, and now those people wouldn't identify with the LP if their life depended on it, which I think has been interesting. Yeah, but back to persuasion, I think that's the hard case. I think what I've struggled with, because I agree with you, someone at church listens, and they said, I really liked it. I never thought I'd listen to a libertarian podcast. And there's a Pat Down listener. She was the only Spotify Wrapped person last year. And she said, I just like to hear different viewpoints on things. I find so many people in the Pat Down audience willing to entertain what I have to say because they know me personally. And I'm not trying to libertarian-splain thing. I don't know. I've been somewhat, even though in the libertarian world I've never been less effective and impactful, in the outside world, I've been able to translate our ideas or at least make people think, oh, they're not all this way. They're not just all jerks online. I think it's easy to persuade people, but you may not always have victory with it. Like, you just have to be, if you're going to persuade people, it's like being a Christian apologist. Like, you can argue with Richard Dawkins all you want. You may not change his mind. There may be 200 people in the crowd listening going, oh, I never thought of it that way. Wow, that's a good point. Seed planting, right? Now Richard Dawkins says he's amenable to Christian culture, right? After 30 years of all this.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think with persuasion, your goal is the people who love the MAGA movement, who are libertarians, love the idea of winning. That's their goal.
Yeah.
As opposed to making people think, building a relationship with people. And I think that's the thing that, like, I had a hard time with the Mises people. It's like Michael Heiss didn't want to have a relationship of any sort with me. He wanted to use me as a tool to build his base.
Mhm.
So we have two totally fundamental paths on how we're going to do this thing. Like, and I'm never going to be your friend because you see me as a useful tool and not as somebody who could be a partner in spreading your message and persuading my audience to think the way that you think. Like, it's audience capture versus informing people. Persuading people.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't know. So I find in my situation over the last 2-3 years, more people are willing to listen to me, and I may not be converting all of those people, but at least there's a lot more seed planting than I see in other folks who do the same thing, right? It's been interesting for sure.
I think the most powerful thing that you do is that you're out there doing things. So you're a libertarian that does stuff. You're a libertarian that has a family. You're a libertarian that goes to church. Yeah, you're active in your community. You help people out. So when people like even so it's easier for you to plant those seeds because you're actually out doing different things and changing and absorbing information. That's one thing that we like doing with Low Key is that
I'm sorry, what was that?
With Low Key.
What is that?
It's a podcast on the We Are Libertarians Network.
Oh,
it's the
I remember that network.
It's great. It's a great podcast. I think it's put out more episodes this year.
What do you do on that network? What's your goal there when you're planting seeds?
Which is more of the idea. So when people are like, hey, these guys are cool, I like what they're doing, what is this libertarianism? So they've got somewhere to go for it, or they think about it. So it's neat. They're neat. I like them. I like their content they do. They talk about the same things I talk about. They're just railing about different things. It's just being out there and just doing stuff.
There's a great analogy that I see in the Christian community. This is I was part of it for a while now, and then again and out again.
Yeah, we asked you to leave. You're the only person ever. It's really weird.
We were suggesting, but you have the people who
Unitarians are like, get this guy out of here.
We sit there like, John the Bells owes me 5 lighters.
So it was always go ahead. I know there's always to me the way that Christians are supposed to be spreading the message is by living the life that they believe in as much as they can and show that to everybody else. Be generous, be loving, and people will see that and go, hey, what makes them so happy? I have all these problems, and they seem to be good spirits. They seem to be helping people and loving and caring. But then you've got, and that, I think that's more effective long term in planting seeds and changing minds.
Yeah.
But then you've also got the fire and brimstone preachers who are telling everybody how wrong it is, and that amps up energy and amps up emotions, and will get somebody in a quick hit type of thing.
There's just a lifespan on that. Yeah, there's a short lifespan on that. And I would say that, like, in the Christian community, to carry this over, like, I studied apologetics because I thought I might run into a lib at a Starbucks and might need to argue some theory of God and did 6 days happen or was it 6,000? Whatever. Man, I use my apologetics training for my 6-year-old. She's got me up against the wall constantly going, what is this? What is that? What is that? She's a very smart little girl. But that style, there's a great, I'll have to put it in the show notes, but there's a great podcast that I will tell you about in just a second, because it's Justin Brierley did this podcast, The Surprising Rebirth of Belief in God. Okay. Now, this guy hosted a podcast called Unbelievable ? Where he had atheists and Christians debate. And like 20 years ago, in the early days of the internet, this was a fascinating podcast because I realized how much of our political discourse in the world that I swim in was shaped by like that idea in the early 2000s to 2010 of arguing atheists versus religious people, Christians, and Gamergate. And he talks about how the pump got primed in the movement of the new atheists versus the Christians and all these different debates. And you see the way that like the libertarian world plays out. Let's have a debate, right? That's all descended right directly from the world that Justin Brierley helped create. And he's talking about how many of those figures, how many people in the community that were like atheists have now softened towards faith or have become Christians. And it wasn't because of a really good argument and a magical set of words that unlocked the key. It was because those people formed relationships with the Christians that they were debating, and the personal relationships unlocked their heart, right? And that's where I think we go wrong. Like this appeal to young men where we can just, in the heat of battle, create the right phrase or the right set of circumstances or whatever that's going to get everybody to think it's like very immature thinking.
Yeah.
The way that it works is that you build relationships in your community, which is why I'm really excited to go to this next step in my career, because it's not about, oh, my job sucked, I need to leave it. Like I was literally working at my dream job. It's just this new job is going to allow me to build so many more different relationships within Indianapolis that I wouldn't have access to otherwise at this job. So like I can be more effective by meeting people who are effective in larger numbers, and I can make a bigger impact. And that's the thing that I noticed is none of these people knew anything about me when I was head of you were in the Libertarian Party. How's that work? That's what Jim Kittle asked me in 2019, former chair of the Republican Party here in Indiana. He goes, oh, you're in the I always wondered, what goes on over there? How do you raise any money? What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Saw Mitch Daniels last month. And Mitch Daniels, I didn't realize that I hit a tripwire, but he's, what is it with the Libertarian Party? And he knew some fundamentals, but he was the governor when I was the executive director of the LP. He was generally unaware of what was happening. And that's on me. But it's just the way that libertarians think about things and do things is just, it's not worked. And yeah.
Because they need to have more funding to hire people like you, but at your stage, you're an expert and you're very expensive now.
Yeah.
And they could afford you back then.
Part of it's a lot of it's messaging and the fact that that's what the left has always had a problem with. Their messaging is terrible. Not that they have necessarily a bad idea. Like the concept of white privilege, the concept behind it is very sound and
okay, I can see your argument.
It's a message that should be what it is, but
maybe I need to be more inclusive. That makes sense.
Yeah, but when you say it as white privilege,
now feel guilty about it. No, I won't.
The wrong message that comes out of it, and it's defund the police. It was never about not having police anymore, which is what everybody on the right says that they were saying. And it wasn't what they were saying, but they used the wrong phrasing, and it's so easy to attack.
Yeah.
That's where they really get into huge problems, and I don't know how they ever fix it because they haven't fixed it. I came up with a term called demsplaining, which when they do this stuff, and
it's very ineffective.
If you have to explain your messaging to people to say, oh no, it's really about this, you're lost.
Which has, I think, been the problem with libertarians for so long is there's a lot of chastising about how you talk to each other. When I worked for the Advocates for Self-Government, that was their shtick forever. Here's how you properly talk to a human being. And
you automaton?
I don't know. I think for me, like I'm struggling, Harry, with what's the point of it all? Why be politically interested?
Well, see,
why even bother, right? You have young kids, I have young kids. Rhinehold has a job and a life, and what's the point of doing any of this if it's not, I don't know. I'm struggling with what's the point of even saying you're a libertarian or doing this podcast if there's thousands of people that listen to this, which is why I continue to do it and in the struggle of it all. But I wanted to be honest, like I want to hear from you, audience, just like I want to hear from Harry right now, but like, what's next for the libertarian movement? Where do we go? Because these populist guys, they're not sticking around.
No.
So what's next for the term libertarian and for the people that hold that?
I think what should come next, what should be doing is one, I think the both of us probably need to put a bigger fire under Rhinehold to help one get another show out this next year, 2025. I guess so. These Rhinehold podcasts get another episode.
Podcast he's been talking about for 4 years.
Get another episode.
I had one episode out in 2013.
Just like in church, people need to be reminded of the fundamentals, and I think Rhinehold doing that more often, talking about that, just going back, and so people have that bedrock of libertarian philosophy. First off, just you have to have that. Don't advocate about closing anything down. Just understand what it means to be a libertarian.
But I don't know, and no disrespect to Rhinehold, because this is not a commentary on him.
Yes, it is.
No, because I've had this thought too. But if you look at the last election, right, people don't vote on general themes. So I think part of the problem for libertarians for so long, and I've done this too, like coming here and talking to you about the non-aggression principle, it just doesn't meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
They want to know how you're going to solve the problem that they have. And so that's where like Liberty Explained to the podcast that I've got, I'm like, man, I could do ChatGPT episodes where I have it write me some script about like self-reliance.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's actually what people need or want, right? Like they seem to want somebody. So why is Dave Smith and some of these other guys successful? They give you the enemy. They give you the solution. They tell you the way to solve the problems to get rid of these people and for you to be superior to them.
But they're like, every solution is like, it's quick. That'll get you to next month, but that'll just destroy everything. You have no idea what you've just done.
So first principles are great, but is that persuasive in this day and age?
I don't know if it's more persuasive, but it helps. To me, it will help just remind people of why, help people remind people where they are and what to do something, to help guide people back to north. So while they're coming up with new ideas and coming up with more thought, they're reminded about like why kicking back, so they can bring things back. Because because a lot of the things like that, because a lot of times I will talk about things that were done with local government, and a lot of people say you don't sound too much like a libertarian. To me, I do, because it's more of taking a program that doesn't only going to exist, whether I'd want it or not, making sure it can be funded correctly and have it run correctly. Like I think one thing that you can move a lot of waste, especially from local government, is just let government just work like they're on the same page, like they're on the same team. Most of the time, a lot of especially local government waste is because they don't act like they're on the same team.
Yeah.
We've got this big, beautiful library down here, downtown Indianapolis, right? It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Stinky, but yes, gorgeous.
And then when they decided to make a new bus hub, they built one new one instead of making it part of the library and building that up and making people like, I got to wait for the bus at the library. That's awesome. That sounds amazing.
Are you talking about Central Library or is it where you live?
The Central Library, yeah.
Okay.
But I was where I live, so like out there in Lawrence, so we've got the Purple Line, right? Where they put the Purple Line station, right? They built it 3 blocks away from the brand new library that they built. So, and there's nothing around the library. Triton just closed. Ivy Tech is thinking about leaving that building up there, so it's now just around a bunch of single-family, expensive luxury houses of people who already have cars. This is awesome.
Yeah, I think local's the answer, for sure. I think getting involved in the local and like in issues that actually are heart-centered, like human-centric. Like, to me, if I put it, like housing is so personal to people. And it's one of those things that Republicans don't really think a lot about housing. Democrats think a lot about housing on the local level. And there's a libertarian solution for a lot of it, like removing regulations, redoing certain zoning restrictions. And there's no free market voice in local communities talking about housing. That's something that I think is deeply personal to people that libertarians like us could connect on in local areas. But first, you've got to do the work of going to a couple city council meetings, maybe reading a local newspaper, understanding the issue, contextualizing it for your area, and then wading in. And maybe that vehicle is running for office in some political party, libertarian or not, and like focusing on an issue that people care a lot about, because I'd love to buy a house, but it's really hard for us to come up with the down payment. Okay, here's what, blah, 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 blah. And here's how we can fix it on our local, and I'm going to be the one to do it.
Correct.
Or writing, like going back to the old school advocates for self-government 1990s programs of write some letters to the editor, start a local centric podcast like Boss Hog of Liberty, and talk about housing. Because I guarantee the reason it's hard to build housing in your area is because of pay-to-play zoning, big projects and developers interfering and controlling the regulations and zoning issues in your area. Like that to me is like a great place to start. That's not sexy on Twitter, and you're not going to build like a national like libertarian audience doing that kind of podcast, but who cares? Like, you're going to get out in your community. I think what Jeremiah has done out in Newcastle has been like the model for so many different things and people, because he shows you that he's a normal guy, living his life, talking about normal issues, but also tilling the ground. And he's the moderating voice. Like, when the Republicans and Democrats want to have a debate, they come to the Libertarian and his podcast to have a debate. Right? So I think that, to me, has been a great model.
It is something I'm going to tend to start up next year for my little town, because I'm used to, like, because I'm having to, our town council meetings are on Zoom. So I'm usually with it there, and I'm having to take information from there and I get on the Facebook group and go, this is going on here.
Right.
And it gets very tiring. I wish I could just make a podcast, just dish it out. And so I'm going to
pull clips.
Yeah, pull clips and just do it, because I got upset because the NIMBYs talking about you can't build these apartments, going to lower everyone's property value. And I'm like, the thing is, it's not going to lower everyone's property value. They're building apartments next to a railroad tracks and the other open field next to the other apartment building. I don't know how this is going to lower anyone's property values.
Well, they just did this in Broad Ripple. They're putting up all kinds of apartment buildings in Broad Ripple now. I don't think their values are dropping.
No, because when you build high, it's always like the low income housing is always terrible that nobody wants to live in, and then they call it cost affordable housing or whatever, and it's like the ugly buildings with the slanty roofs, and it's like $1,200 a month for 600 square feet. And it's not really meeting the needs. It's the real estate businesses are in their own little bubble.
And they're building junk businesses, like a junk house, not a business, but houses. Like, I even watch a lot of different podcasts from, I don't know, one to confirm my bias on the idea of not buying some of the newer built houses.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are like, oh, I've loved my warranty. Good for you. But I am watching like some of the podcasts, some of these newer built houses aren't built to the same standard, or they're just built cheaply. Like, most of the pricing of these new houses is built just bring the services to that new building, not also into the house. It's made with, a lot of them have junk, basic vinyl, crappy windows, and crappy thing built inside of it.
If you look at in the bones on a lot of those houses, I had a friend of mine who bought one of those and ended up having to leave after a while, but they had a problem. We looked into the roof, and the ceiling had come down on the side. We were looking at how the roof was made. This first floor ceiling as opposed to the second floor, and the 2x4s were in there really weird. And they had 1x2s holding up certain pieces. And this is terribly built.
Yeah.
Most of it is slapped together.
Most of it is junk built by hedge fund run major corporations. Like, the building that we're in is owned by a guy named Rex Fisher, who moved to Fountain Square and decided he wanted to make Fountain Square a great place to live. So he set up this co-working space that the podcast studio's in. He builds houses in this area. He rehabs like, these were two old churches in Switchboard that he wanted to make beautiful again and make functional in the community, as opposed to like just dead zones. Like, I think as consumers, we have to pick people like Rex who care about your local area and the place that you actually live, and make choices that might cost you a little bit more. Now, here's the crazy thing. Doing this here costs me less because I can build a relationship with the people that run this place versus going to a big conglomerate type co-working space who has their own podcast studio that they want to rent out that nobody wants to rent. Like, but you have to actually go to the business networking meetings that I went, where I met Emily, who runs this space. You have to get out and go to the breakfasts and be a part of the community and say what I said, which is, I have a vision for podcasting that can end the loneliness crisis. And, I love that idea. I want to partner with you. My libertarianism is tangential to, it's adjacent to a lot of my stuff, like you're saying. Like, it's versus 10 years ago when I think I was just a less effective person when that was my leading identity characteristic. Like, I'm a libertarian. But I'll tell you, like, the place I'm going to work, Nate Feltman, head of the Liberty Fund, major libertarian think tank based here in Indianapolis. Like, I've sent out a lot of resumes with weird libertarians on it.
Yeah.
Didn't help. But Nate, the libertarian, was like, all right. So it's just, you find people when you put yourself out there that share your values, and you can make an impact in your local area. Like, I've never tried to build like some libertarian conglomerate or whatever. I just think this makes people's lives better. Like when they have more choice, more control, more options, and more local control, especially on things, like we should advocate for those things.
Yep. The problem is that the name libertarian's gotten really tainted.
Yeah.
Just like the name liberal got really tainted. Even though that's really what libertarians is, classic liberal. It's the Jeffersonian model, it's the Madisonian.
I'm of the mind of like, they suck, why should I change my name?
I know.
It's like the Michael Bolton theory. Like, I'm not the one who sucks, he sucks. He should change his name.
But we already did. We already created a libertarian name because the liberal name had gotten tainted.
Here's what I would say about that. I feel I am in a great position to speak to this because of the pat down experience. Probably better than a lot of people because I'm going into an audience that is largely Democrat, a lot of white progressive women, black Democratic voters. Like they have a perception of libertarian, which is, oh, you're against civil rights. You're against the Civil Rights Act, that kind of stuff, right? Very holdover, Goldwater type thinking about how libertarianism is framed. And by doing something that built a relationship with tens of thousands of listeners, they don't have that same perception of libertarian. There are times where people will send me stuff and, do you agree with this? I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. Here's why. But like before this election, Pat and Dion are just like screaming at me. We had an episode where it was just a scream fest over 2 episodes. It was horrible. It was like, honestly, I just left it like Pat and I had tension after it, and I just felt really bad about those episodes. But they were talking to me because I wasn't voting for either one of those candidates. They were talking to me because I think differently and identify as a libertarian. Yeah, you do have to defend a lot of nonsense, but you still retain the difference that gets people curious about what you believe. So I would say that, yes, the libertarian word, like any political association, is going to carry baggage, but who cares that some people don't like you?
Right.
Like at the end of the day, you don't have to agree with those people that you disagree with because you share the same label. And it's the broadest term that you can fit under that people are going to identify with. And you can redeem it for at least the people you come into contact with. And I just have gotten over wanting everybody to like me. Like I've done broadcasting for over 20 years now. And I have said stuff into a microphone in order to get everyone to like me. And what you learn is nobody ends up liking you. So you should just be honest with what you think. Even if you like, I'm at this moment in my life where I don't have time to think. I don't know what I think. I think all of this sucks. And I don't know that I want to do the work of redeeming the word libertarian. I don't know that I want to go back and relearn my first principles like I did and re-fall in love with these concepts. And I'm just being honest with the audience. And I know there's patrons and people that listen and they're like, I donate and listen because this is a libertarian show.
Yeah.
But I also feel like over the course of 5 years, we've been really honest about that stuff. And we've built a great audience of people who are like, I'm not listening to you because you're a libertarian. I'm listening to you because you guys have a different perspective on the news than other people.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to be indoctrinated into a term. I'm here to think differently about things. And even if, like, I think you just speak up and you say, I'm a libertarian. And if somebody doesn't like you or doesn't want to listen to you because you share a term with somebody that they don't like, that's on them at a certain point. You have a duty to find out just because you're a Democrat and you're a Republican. Okay, what do you think about this? What are our values? Going to what you're saying, which is like figuring out your first principles and where you agree and where you disagree based around first principles. That's why I can get along with Pat and Dion.
Yeah.
Like the idea of every human being is deserving of liberty and dignity is fundamental. And how is that applied across the board? And that, I think, is in direct conflict with a lot of today's Republican Party, which is why I'm not a Republican. A lot of that audience just goes, you're just Republican light. But I'm not. I would be a Republican. It'd be way easier in my life to just say I'm a Republican than to be something different. But I think fundamentally today's Republican Party does not uphold the value of a person's dignity first and cares about its liberty but doesn't always follow through on it. I don't think that Democrats care about people's liberty and speak towards dignity and doesn't always deliver on that either. So These are important values, liberty and dignity to me. And I don't want to have to compromise. But yeah, that causes tension in that relationship, but it also means I get more time to speak because it's easy to just go, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, and throw you away.
Yeah, dismiss you.
My only thing is that having somebody just dismiss what you're going to say because of that label, that's always been my problem. And the other problem is too, is that at its heart, libertarianism is very individualistic. We don't really like group identities.
Yeah.
So how do we say we're part of this?
Get over it. The problem with libertarians is you are part of a group. Like, this is the thing that drives me crazy. Like, yeah, okay, the common good still exists. Like, it's the Christian conception of the common good. It's not, I think the left tries to co-opt the idea of common good and we're all passing laws for the common good. And that's not what it is. It's everybody rowing. Like, I'm a libertarian because I want the common good to flourish. And I think that happens best with free markets and more individualism and respecting the liberty and dignity of the individual. But Ayn Rand individualism doesn't work for the common good. You can't just treat every relationship and business opportunity from a selfish perspective.
Correct.
And so you don't have the option to just be a stranger alone in the world. Those like theoretical conceptions of just focus on yourself, you're the only one that matters, like that very 90s like Fight Club matrix philosophy. Of course, philosophy doesn't.
I don't want to live in that world.
Fight Club is supposed to be a satire against that, but it ends up being embraced by the people that was trying to.
What movie?
Fight Club.
Fight Club, yeah. It gets embraced by people who don't get the irony. Like, I love Archie Bunker. You're who he's making fun of.
He tells it as it is.
Yeah, but I think your point to your local community,
yeah,
get involved in the fight. The problem with a lot of us is that we're not involved in knowing what's going on in the local area.
Yeah, because there's someone that I wish I came with the idea because the community created a great third place, right? In the valley. And someone's, you know what, let's start getting all the business and business owners and people in the area, let's just meet up once a month, have coffee, and just talk. And I was like, that is a brilliant idea. I can't believe I didn't come up with something like that. And I can't wait to go. It's going to be amazing. But
a chamber of commerce.
No, we have a chamber, but this is just something unofficial. We'll come into a third place. No one owns this area.
This is a big thing, like,
and just hang out and talk.
Associations without associations. This is becoming a thing that nobody's talking about. Like, people want community and to get together, but they don't want to have to pay a membership fee. They don't want to have an ID card. They just want to show up and have coffee and
and a hierarchy and all that.
Yeah, all that politics is bunk. The
one thing that's missing that has been driven out of our culture is this idea of the third place.
Yes.
People getting out of their houses and going to a place where they can exist, form a community that don't have to spend money at, and just be with the people in their community. Yeah. We have, and a lot of them have been destroyed and taken away, and so like, it just seems weird and foreign to us. But like overseas, in a lot of different countries, this is normal.
When you go to Europe, for instance, you'll see a lot of cafes and a lot of like open spaces and that's a third place. And so it, like Carmel here in Indiana is the richest city in the state, and it takes a lot of bunk for that. And they like have a lot of public financing of third places.
Yep.
And things like the Palladium. But like last week, did you go to the Crystal Kindle Market?
Yeah, isn't it nice?
Yeah, we went there last week, right? One of our patrons from Louisville, Matthew Durbin, drove up from Louisville to go to the Kinder Market or Kindle Market. It's basically a German Christmas market with ice skating and Santa there on the weekend.
Wine, which is mulled wine, hot wine. It's amazing.
We left early. On the 23rd because it was too crowded.
It's super packed.
Too crowded.
You want to go the first weekend or the last? You want to go in the middle?
Yeah, you got to go in like early in the middle or whatever.
You want to be in the middle. You want to be the first or the last? You want to be in the middle.
But they have Midtown, which is like a big open space with a bunch of restaurants, and you can live and work in a space in Midtown.
Correct. And you can walk through that area.
The Arts District.
Yeah, and it's something, and these people, what is also like with Carmel, is it is the richest area, right? It's easier to get things done, and they have more free time to actually influence Indiana politics. That's the other thing, because their areas is more opened up to everything else.
They're way more networked because they have people that get together. And I did a campaign commercial that I don't think ever got used for a guy named Jeff Worrell, who's a Republican, I've come to find out. But I knew Jeff for 3 years before I ever knew what party he was in. I just knew this guy loved Carmel and was like its biggest fan. He's working on a project around civility that I really like. We get together every once in a while. I'm just a big fan of Carmel and Jeff, to the point that, like, I would go and do a commercial for a Republican or Democrat. I figured he might be a Republican since it was Carmel, but I didn't know. I just know this guy is really great at championing, and he convinced me that Carmel's awesome. And I was for a South Side or West Sider, like, you're supposed to hate Carmel, right?
Yeah.
But they use these third places to build community. And that community is so attractive that people are traveling from Louisville to come to one of their third places. And it helps fund a lot of different things for the city. It's just, that's why so many local communities around Indiana and Indianapolis are now building third places and performing arts centers and all these things, and farmers markets, because they're trying to attract people like Carmel was.
Some of them are doing it dumb and wrong. It's a lot of the things, because Fishers is stupid. If you look at the way the Fishers are doing, it's dumb. They need someone to come in and help.
These opinions are Harry's, not mine. Remember, just so they're clear. Like,
because you see what
employee handbook.
If you go and look at what Fishers is doing, I see, but this is. It is not. It's too car-centric. Fishers is too car-centric.
Yeah.
You got to get people out of their cars, get too many stupid lights. And then the way Indy was is try to get people out of their cars and get out and walk around.
Right.
But they're doing the fun stuff first, not the hard stuff work.
This is what ticks me off, because I've been living in downtown Indy for 3 years. They closed the circle, half the circle to traffic.
Yes.
And they put up like fake grass and picnic tables and games to play and concerts, and they do all kinds of fun things to attract people to come to the circle and hang out on half of the famed circle, Monument Circle. We love it.
Yeah.
We walk the 35 minutes down with our kids down to the thing. We hang out. We get ice cream. Eleonora plays with some blocks. She knocks them over. They have a good time, and we would walk back. It's a fun, healthy thing for us to do in a third place here in my city.
Yep.
You would think that they were massacring baby goats on the circle the way that these suburban people talk about this thing. This is the dumbest waste of taxpayer money ever. These are people who are never going to visit.
Yeah.
These are people who are not coming down to it. Or my good friend Rob Kendall, who works in the building next to it, he just hates it. He just thinks it's so stupid. It's like, why don't you just go enjoy it with your family? I don't know. I look at it and I go, you really have to constantly hate everything? But these third places, I think, are awesome because they are places where I see people from my church at them. And
I hate it because they're covered up the beautiful bricks with that crappy grass. Bricks are very beautiful.
Some are saying the most beautiful.
I hate it because they only did half of it, so they're just doing it fully. That's my problem.
Right.
It's open it up, go for it. Just do it.
Yeah.
And do some more road diets. Stop massacring, thinning out, and destroying Michigan and New York Street.
You have tons of cops, so it's safer than normal on the circle.
And then also zone it up for the other restaurants to also do the exact same thing.
The reason that they close half and not the full circle is because of the business owners.
Correct.
The local business owner said, we don't want you to shut off traffic fully because that will hurt our business.
Which I don't know how, because you really can't park in there most of the time. Most people park and walk to their areas anyways.
It's just the visual of it, I think. And the half that they're closing, there are no businesses in the front stores except the ice cream shop, which makes a killing.
Yeah, the reasoning is goofy. And you get deliveries, like you don't get deliveries there. That's not where the place is designed to have deliveries put at anyways.
But you got to work with your local business owners.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't tick them off.
Yeah.
These people have been through enough.
Correct. They've been through enough, and they're also like gun shy of what Indiana does anyway.
Literally.
Because it takes us forever to build concrete blocks. You can watch your business. Usually when they were redoing the state road in my little town, they literally island a business because they destroyed the road and kept people, so you were just stuck. Literally made an island because they took the road away from you. Got nowhere to go.
All right, we got to wrap up. We're at an hour and a half. We had no plans for this episode, and I think it shows.
Yeah.
It's just fun hanging out.
I really just wanted to talk about that SEO article from Google, but
Let's do that next week.
It's fine. Oh, look at them. Just go start the new year with a new podcast. See that?
Or maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Final thoughts, boys.
Wow. I don't know if I have one.
My final thought is I bit my tongue today, and it hurts like a mother. It sucks. You can avoid biting your tongue. Do it. Don't bite it.
That needs to be captioned and put on a TikTok. Yeah, so it's
okay. We'll get new merch this year too.
Don't bite your tongue.
Yeah, if you can help it.
I'd like to thank my dad for giving me a Miro camera for Christmas. I also bought a new Mac.
That's fine.
Is it?
Yeah, it's fine.
You okay with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Just wipe it and put Linux on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the new
Hardware.
It's great hardware. Yeah.
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 So we used the new Mevo camera today. You always hated the Mevo camera.
I hate.
Closed environment.
Yeah, because it's a closed garden, and if the app ever stops working or communicating with the internet, it'll just stop working.
Yeah, but look at this.
What about it?
Look, I could switch. Here's Rhinehold. If you're watching YouTube, now you can see close up on me.
I could do that with OBS.
Yeah, but we can't do that with OBS because you'd have to have. I have one camera instead. I've got 4 shots here.
No, you can do that with OBS. You just needed a better camera.
Now the problem was I forgot to switch it off, so it was looking at Rhinehold while I was talking for 5 minutes. So it's okay. Nobody watches the YouTube anyways. It's fine.
That's true. Yeah, no one really watches YouTube stuff like that. But yeah. The Kick though, tons of Kick viewers.
Kick viewers?
Yeah, people love us on Kick.
What is Kick?
It's a competitor to Twitch.
Oh,
yeah,
like Rumble.
Yeah, like Rumble. It's green too.
Okay.
Yeah, but
is anybody on Kick?
But there's a lot of banned people. People who are banned on Twitch are on Kick.
And waifus.
But the main thing, going back to your comment, I was like, be careful of what things fund people, because
it's
a lot of businesses right now are either funded by hedge funds, or which we're finding out from coffee is that they're either run by gambling.
Yeah.
So it's I think the gambling epidemic inside the United States is going to be.
I've got thoughts on this.
Terrible.
And they're Chuck Colson-like thoughts on gambling. But like, this is a real addiction that people have.
Yeah.
They'll spend hundreds of dollars a week on like Farmville and Township and these games. So these gambling crises.
Yeah.
These gambling hotlines get calls from people who are addicted to Township.
Yep. Like, and they get started early because, like, my daughter wanted to play this game because a lot of her friends in her summer camp was playing it. It's this goofy little game, and it's just like a little dress up like that. And there's like, well, can I have some money for the game? I have no problem buying skins. Whatever. Sure, I had $2, $50 skins. No, I found out, I was looking at the store like, wow, you can easily dump $1,000 and still add everything in this game. And I realized, like, oh, this is a gotcha game. This game is meant to be gambling and get you addicted to get the new clothes and all this stuff, put money into.
See, there's a line, because there's certain games that we play that has microtransactions in it. And it's a way for like a game that's basically free to pay the development for the game to keep going. So, but it's never, you have to pay this in order to get there's no gambling really involved. There's no push for that. Like Guild Wars 2 is another.
Okay,
you can buy jails, you can buy skins,
one from Blizzard,
and stuff like that. There's some that are more trying to get you into it, and there's some really unscrupulous people who do put those games out that are more bad at it. But yeah, the games we normally play are like nice to have.
I stopped playing Roller Coaster Tycoon on iPad because it was just like you can't play the game without watching 10 commercials.
You might as well just buy the old retro roller coaster.
Tried. Eleanor really loves designing roller coasters that kill people.
Then buy the old one.
I tried on Steam, but it doesn't work with Mac. The one that kills people doesn't work with Mac.
I thought they were fixing.
Oh, it's just shit. Yeah, you probably should be. We'll talk.
You can download Steam, and you can.
I'll show you how to get past that.
Okay,
we should get past that
because she really loved this because she could design coasters where people fly off.
Especially with your Mac. Your Mac is probably powerful enough. You probably could just boot up a Windows VM. Harold's is just a Windows VM and leave it off in the corner.
I've got
play a Steam game, just stream it over.
2 Macs that have a lot of power.
Oh, okay. You could just buy one little PC in the corner or a Steam. That's probably what you should do. Honestly, you're probably a Steam Deck user. We could probably buy you a Steam. You probably should buy a Steam Deck. Like, you'd be better.
You're probably the target audience.
We don't have
Steam Deck.
We don't have video games at our house. Really? So why she loves going to her dad's house because she's got the Switches and the PlayStation.
On the Steam Deck, you can play Civilization 6, 7. This can
mobile on your thing and be able to hook it up to a TV.
Nice.
And it's small, it's lightweight. You don't have to worry about a gaming PC because it's just a little handheld.
I don't know about you, but we really limit video games and tablets. Like she's got to play with her brother. They're playing a lot now that he's almost 2. Like,
no,
we have times like yesterday she got to watch kids playing Minecraft on a tablet. She was ecstatic because I normally don't let her, but I'm like, it's Christmas vacation, enjoy yourself. But like the rest of the time, educational videos. You're going to be smart.
certain games you should limit, certain games it's unlimited, right? There's that Prodigy math game that she loves from school,
Yeah.
and that like she'll play it for hours because there's a little strategy. You attack by having to solve math problems.
She knows, like a year ago, she was saying like triple consonant words because of some of these YouTube videos. Like some of it's really educational.
Yeah, Peg plus Cat, if there's really good math one on PBS. There's some games like especially on the Switch where you'd let some of the platformer ones. I like that one because they're problem solvings and strategy and looking things ahead. Those games, no, unlimited. You can play as many hours.
Yeah.
This game. Why can't I play that? Because you're not doing anything other than just like sticking things. You actually use your brain process and think. Go ahead, because kids learn more from play than they do from anything else.
Yeah.
This used I used when I was younger to play Railroad Tycoon because I was like, I'm learning how to manage inventories and move things. And
What do you think you do with Azure? Okay, but like I think what is the other one? Because my daughter's very good at typing. So if there's typing game on Steam, she doesn't like doing it because she likes doing the lower levels, which are fun because you do more of the game. But I make her go off and do like harder ones, and you come back and do the fun levels.
Yeah.
Because she's very good. Her friends that come over and are like, "How are you so good at this?" I was like, "It's game. It's game."
Yeah, like that. We haven't really thought much about the educational stuff, but she's getting into the age where like we went to Christmas and her cousins are all watching their tablet while they're like her friends all are playing video games. You can't say no video games ever. You can't say no tablet ever. But I do think you can direct it to more healthy things. And she understands like the reason you can't watch these things are that they're nonsense. And then these things are educational because it's making you smarter and she wants to be smart.
Yeah.
So it's been like quite the negotiation the last year trying to figure out what's appropriate and what's not.
Yeah, it's just creating good habits of treating like treats. My daughter doesn't really drink a lot of like soda pops.
Yeah.
Because and a lot of kids freak out when they come to our house because we treat a can of soda like it's a dessert.
It's a treat.
Yeah. What can I have for dessert? You can have a can of soda, you can have a cookie, or you can have a cake. Sometimes you want a soda.
Yeah.
And a lot of friends are like, soda's not a dessert. Yes, it is. It's 160 calories.
You go out to a restaurant and it's a big day when she gets a soda.
Yeah.
Not water. It's not an every time thing. Yeah. Like when I was a kid, I was drinking 4 Mountain Dews a day, which is why I was a fat kid. I don't know. There's it's all about moderation, I think, is the lesson of this episode.
Yep.
So
all things in moderation. Yep.
Yep. So I'll hit you up for some of those. Message Harry so you can get some of those games. But thanks for watching and listening. It's good to come and talk to you guys and hang out with all of you and hang out with Harry and Rhinehold and just get together and chat. We're going to do more of it in the future here, but just give me some grace. Just give me a month or two. I've got to figure out my new routines, and I could do a podcast at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, and it didn't matter because I had full control of my schedule. I have no idea if that's going to exist still. I think I have to be in the office a lot more, so I've just got to figure out new routines with my family first, and then you guys. Just please be patient with me. Be gentle with me.
Be okay.
All right.
We'll put more episodes out than you this year. Like low key, more.
I bet Brian Nichols started beating me in terms of downloads for the first time in the last month.
Gross.
I know. I know. I have to work harder. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching here on We're Libertarians and the Chris Spangle Show.